I'm not going to waste any time with this one, because these two games represent the kind of final boss of the card game obsession I've had over the last few years of Shut Up and Sit Down. And if you are a fan of either The Lord of the Rings or just a really good card game, then you should say goodbye to at least £20 immediately. And if you're a fan of both, then you probably already have these games. But thank you for watching anyway. These sleek cardboard obelisks contain a nuclear payload of bang for bucks that I might give you if you asked really nicely. And I can understand that there's likely a bit of fatigue setting in at this point for you folks, because I seem to fall in love with a new niche card game basically every other week. But these, I promise, are just a little bit different. They've taken over basically every single one of my game nights. They've accompanied me to no less than 5 different countries. They have been played relentlessly by literally everyone who I regularly get to play games with. I knew that these were review-worthy boxes after a pretty meager clutch of plays, and yet I have routinely started them from scratch over and over and over again just because I love them so much. And why do I love them so much, I hear you ask? Well, aren't you in luck, question boy? Because this is a video review that I have written and filmed and edited about The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Tricktaking Game, and also The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, The Tricktaking Game. And it's starting right now. So, these are the Lord of the Rings trick-taking games. We've got one for the Fellowship of the Ring and one for the Two Towers, with the king presumably returning sometime in the future. And they're both cooperative card games for 1 to 4 players, with each box structured as a series of chapters that you and your fellowship are going to collaboratively clamber through like a cardstock jungle gym. Each of these individual chapters grows from the same seed. You have a deck of cards numbered 1 through 8 in 4 different suits: shadows, forests, mountains, and hills, with a set of 5 special ring cards shuffled in too. Now these ring cards have a couple of different gimmicks. The one ring may win any trick it's played into, but the whole ring's suit must be broken in before it can be led, meaning you have to shed out of the lead colour before any can be played. Wait! Stop. What's going on here? Regular viewers of Shut Up and Sit Down have probably had the concept of trick-taking explained to them literally a billion times by now, but the subject matter of this video might have meant that we've stumbled from Nitsea nerd territory into orc-dork territory. So here is a quick primer on what a trick-taking game is, if you're more of a Glorfindel than a Friedman Frieser. So, a trick is essentially a round and works like this. The first player will lead the trick by playing a card from their hand, and the suit of that card determines what the other players must follow if they are able. So if I play a 5 of shadows, you must play a shadows card if you have one in your hand. If you don't have any cards of the lead suit, then you can play whatever you want, this 7 of forests, for example. But it's only the highest card of the lead suit that's eligible to win the trick. So even though your 7 is higher than the 5, you're out of luck. It's not a shadows card, and we led shadows. The player who wins the trick takes all the cards that were played and puts them in a little pile in front of them. That is a trick that they have taken. They will then lead the next trick by playing whatever card they want from their hand. You rinse and repeat this process until all the tricks have been taken, until all the cards have been played from all the players' hands. And in a typical trick taker, whoever has won the most tricks will probably score the most points and win the hand. But this is not a typical trick taker. These are of course cooperative trick-taking games where players need to work together to ensure that specific players win specific tricks at specific times, and which specific tricks you need to win at specific times depends on which specific character from Lord of the Rings you're choosing to inhabit the skin of this time around. I'm wearing Gandalf. In Chapter 1, it's Bilbo's birthday. And these 4 losers are ready to boogie. The birthday boy himself has to win 3 tricks, Gandalf's got to win at least 1, and Pippin's got to win the fewest. And finally, Frodo's got to bag himself 2 rings cards specifically. And if all those goals get accomplished, victoire. And those goals might be a little tricky to achieve if each character was random and they got dealt a random hand of cards. But luckily, you got a few tricks up your sleeve. The first one being that you get to choose your character after seeing your hand of cards. So if you've got nice, sturdy, beefy mitts, then you might take Bilbo to bag his 3 wins. Whereas someone with a pathetic and puny clutch of cards might instead go for Pippin. And some of the characters also come with a little lick of setup, allowing them to pass a card to another player round the table, sharing a little bit of information in an otherwise communicationless game and sculpting their hand to better achieve their goal. For example, Pippin might slide Frodo a nice high card, limiting his own ability to win tricks and to also make sure that Frodo has a sturdy way of winning his rings. Play the hand, win the tricks, and hopefully pass the chapter by completing everybody's goals, at which point you can move on to the next chapter, which introduces all kinds of new gimmicks that will get in the way of you ditching that f***ing jewelry. Now all of this is great, but explaining why it's so good is a little bit weird for me, because this game is delightful in a lot of the same ways that modern classic The Crew is delightful. A game that I feel as though I've referenced more than any other during my time at Shut Up and Sit Down so far. It too is a scenario-based cooperative must-follow trick taker with limits on communication and a gradually escalating difficulty curve. And there are so many reasons why it's so good. It's so good because it's easy to learn yet hard to master, evolving from simple, buoyant card play into excruciatingly tough challenges that require cautious card counting and near-perfect mind melds with your fellow players. It's so good because it fits in any slot you give it, equally comfortable as a little filler in between games or an entire game night in and of itself. You can play it fast and sloppy and loose around a pub table, or you can lock in and ace everything first try. It's so good because it forces you to think of cards differently, every single session necessitating that you pick up some new technique on how best to appraise your hand or share information at exactly the right time. It's so good because each hand is this slow boil of tension that's then released in a flurry of post-game chatter that's involved and interesting and unique whether you win or lose. This structure of game is like catnip to me, and it's a structure that these games gladly share in almost its entirety. And if you want to hear even more about why those foundational elements are so strong, then you can probably just check out my original video on The Crew, which I will forget to link in the description. But my point here is that all of this is a baseline for what this game is doing, a rock-solid baseline that it continues to build on top of in all kinds of fascinating ways. See, The Crew has all of these scenarios that are semi-randomly generated by these task cards. They mostly just give you an escalating number of challenges to pull, with additional wrenches thrown in here and there. And to be clear, I don't think that this is a bad thing at all. I still love The Crew. I think it's an incredible game. But I think that the way the Lord of the Rings trick takers are more intentionally structured really fits with what they're trying to achieve here. It allows each chapter room to breathe, to feel more intentional, to feel more characterful. If you're worried about spoilers for the particular mechanical tricks that either of these games pull, then I'll put a timestamp somewhere on screen here so you can skip all of that chatter. But if you're curious about what's going on in these boxes, well, let me present you a charcuterie but for cards. Old Man Willow's chapter has you remove the entire forest suit from the game, setting it aside as a separate deck that plays the role of a CPU opponent that trumps your cards and gets in the way. When you pop into the Prancing Pony, Frodo has been replaced by this mysterious Mr. Underhill character. Gollum's whole deal is that he's essentially one character played by 2 players simultaneously. Which side's gonna win out? Slinker or Stinker? Tag yourself. I'm Stinker. Gandalf 2, the sequel, shows up to Merry and Pippin in an ambiguous manner. It's initially unclear what particular brand of old man they're dealing with, and so you don't know if you're playing Saruman or Gandalf until halfway through the hand. Treebeard plays a whole trick behind everyone, cause he's slow. The Great River adds an entirely new wetsuit. And the Mines of Moria has a Balrog boss fight. Playing through all of these exciting and charming and weird chapters, I grew to realise that the Lord of the Rings trick-taking games are, of course, a love letter to Lord of the Rings, but they're even more of a love letter to the whole subgenre of trick-taking games. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of weird trick-takers out there. The trick-taking but genre has exploded recently, and rightly so. There's so many exciting variations on these straightforward bones of design, and a lot of the appeal of the genre is seeing these novel twists on quite a stable formula. And what I love about these Lord of the Rings trick-takers is that they feel like getting a whole collection of these niche trick-takers in tiny little doses. They're just having so much fun playing with trick-taking, and that joy is infectious. It's taking all of these strange gimmicks and wrinkles and rubs and compressing them into this dinky little sweet shop of design. And the result is that these boxes aren't just some of the best Lord of the Rings games, they're some of the best games, full stop, with the added bonus of being Lord of the Rings themed. I've deliberately tried to avoid making too many jokes or references to the core text here, because I wanted to emphasize how strong these games are on their own merits. These are not just sustained by the power of recognition, familiarity, or reference. To me at least, they're brilliant games first, and Lord of the Rings games second. And I'll go one step further, because over the years at Shut Up and Sit Down, I have played a whole bunch of Lord of the Rings themed games without ever having actually watched the movies. And those were fun games. I had a good time, I enjoyed myself greatly, but they never sparked in me a desire to go and watch or read the thing that they are based on. But in spending a wild amount of time playing these games and just seeing how much love has gone into them, it's finally what pushed me into going and actually seeing the films in cinema, and that was a sufficiently rapturous experience that I ended up playing the whole thing again. And on this next journey through these games, I developed a whole extra layer of love for them, because they're not just beautifully designed boxes, but they're also charmingly referential. During Helm's Deep, Legolas has to win a bunch of Orcs cards, and then Gimli has to win more Orcs cards than Legolas. That's so Lord of the Rings. Boromir's goal specifies that if he wins the One Ring, then you lose the whole chapter. That's so Lord of the Rings. I actually ended up messaging the designer because one of the chapters felt like a strangely stiff challenge in comparison to the ones around it. And to that, he replied, "Merry and Pippin are having a very bad time then, not chilling with a tree, drinking magic water." And you know what? He's right. That's so Lord of the Rings. I particularly love how these set-piece moments like the Mines of Moria or Helm's Deep get to feel genuinely momentous because they're these long scenarios where you must complete every character involved, and each individual hand has a corresponding event that represents a particularly spiky moment in the set-piece itself. And yes, obviously, I love this stuff. I think it's really, really cute. But I want to emphasize again that I was addicted to playing these games well before I knew what any of this was, when my only experience with the Lord of the Rings as a whole was the Battle for Middle-earth 2 on the computer. There's so much in these games for Lord of the Rings fans to love. They are so clearly made with such a reverence and adoration for the world that they take place in. But what makes them really sing is that they share that same love for card games, and that is what makes these boxes some of the finest I have yet played. And that's a review, I guess. Sorry, I feel like I've entered full ramble mode here. I just really love these games. Shut Up and Sit Down absolutely recommends The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the Trick-Taking Game, and The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, the Trick-Taking Game, and probably The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, the Trick-Taking Game, when that one eventually comes out. Go on, just have the recommends badge now. But before we wrap up here, just a couple of little practical notes. I would 100% recommend starting with the Fellowship of the Ring Trick-Taking Game and then getting the Two Towers afterwards if you like it. Technically, you can jump straight into this box, but it starts on chapter 19, which gives you the energy of just like starting a book right in the middle. Why would you do that? I think it's also a considerably stiffer challenge than the first game. It doesn't take as long to ease you into the world. Just play the first one first, and then when you're ready, take on the second. Both of these games also have a randomizer mode that you get access to at the end. Once you've finished all the chapters, you can shuffle all the cards together and go and have a crazy Lord of the Rings adventure. If that seems like quite a vague description, that's deliberate, because I actually haven't played the randomizer mode, which I probably should have done for review purposes, but I didn't, because every time I finished the chapters, I just started it again from the beginning. Is that a crime? If people have played a bunch of the randomizer mode, then let me know what it's like in the comments. I presume it's all right, but I do quite like the authored scenarios, and I don't mind replaying them again. And finally, I would recommend that you play these games at 3 or 4 players. There is a 2-player mode in the box, but it had some slightly convoluted setup. I think it's very functional, it just adds a little bit more grit than I'd like in a quick and breezy card game. And that is the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Roll the tape. Roll the tape.